Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Church of Works in our series, God's Medicine. Today, I'm going to talk about a video I promised you some time back on identifying symptoms and deficiencies with your MTHFR. We have a lot to go over today, so I'm going to try to get through it pretty quick. I hope that you take notes. They will be extremely helpful to you. So, real quick, before we get into the different endocrine organs and other organs of the body, I do want to talk just a little bit about some nutrients, specifically your healthy fats, your B's, your D's, and your methyl groups. So, having MTHFR, it's going to be extremely helpful for you if you do a ketogenic type diet, which is going to be high fat, moderate protein, and low carbs. So, a lot of people ask me about the fats and ways that they can get fats. So I just thought I'd list a few for you here. And your healthy fats are going to be coconut oil, olive oil, nuts, butter, cream, avocados. Those you want to incorporate into your diet as much as you can. A lot of people with MTHFR may have weight problems, and you need to eat what you want to burn. So if you want your body to run off of carbs, you eat carbs. If you want your body to run off of alcohol sugars, you drink alcohol. If you want your body to run off of regular sugars, then you eat sugars. But if you want your body to run off of fat, then you need to eat fat. And so when your body's running off of fat, then what it means is you're burning fat. And once you start the body to burning fat and working off of fat, getting its energy from fat, it will burn more than you can eat. So you will begin to see some fat loss after being on a ketogenic diet. But fat loss is really not why we do it. Why we do it is because we want our bodies running off of a healthy fuel and running properly. And this is what the body is supposed to run off of. We're not supposed to operate our bodies off of alcohol sugars or regular sugars or carbs. We should have very low amounts of those. Very, very low on the sugar. So try to incorporate as much of these healthy fats as you can. Do a moderate protein and a very low carb, and you should do fine. Now, I want to talk about your B vitamins. B vitamins are going to be very important. But your healthy fats, your B's, your D's, your methyls, everything I'm going to talk about here, you have to remember, when you have MTHFR, you cannot do anything on a schedule. Everything has to be pulsed. So whether we're talking about healthy foods or nutrients or supplements or medications, it doesn't matter what it is going to have to be pulsed. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's going to build up on your liver and you're going to have an issue. So always remember to pulse, whether it's supplements, whether it's your thyroid meds, whatever it is. When you start to feel bad, you need to lay off of something or you need to start back on something. And we'll talk more about pulsing later. But I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through and discuss these different supplements and endocrine organs. So your B's are going to be important for overall toxicity. They help you detox. They help lots and lots of body functions, but also depression and anxiety. So if you're feeling depressed and anxious, one of the first things to look at is, have I had my B's, or have I been taking them every day and I need to lay off? And often it's going to be probably that you need to take them. Also, vitamin D, you know, that's the sunshine vitamin, and a lot of us don't get enough sunshine, and even when we do, our bodies don't retain it. So, depression is going to be linked with your vitamin D as well. So your B's and D's, you know, look for when you're having any kind of depression or anxiety. Now, your methyl groups, we talked before about methyl groups. I want to just briefly mention those again. Excuse me. Your methyl groups are going to be your leafy greens, your methyl B12, glutathione, methionine, SAMe, selenium, and you can get overloaded on your methyls as well. Most people can't. Most people, you know, need more methyls. They need lots of methyls, and they do great with them. They make them very healthy. They're all healthy foods, you know, that methyls come in, and good supplements. Like, you know, I'm sure people have heard a lot about glutathione being extremely helpful in people with autism and other autoimmune disorders. And the problem is that if you have MTHFR, you may not be breaking down the glutathione. So whereas it's normally a very good nutrient and extremely helpful to people, and will be to you probably when you first take it, but then as you can't break it down, it's going to start to stack up. And that's how stuff stacks up on your liver. People, you know, ask, what do you mean it stacks up on the liver? How does that happen? Well, how it happens is that you can't break down these particular supplements. And so over time, they build up, and then they begin to clog the liver. The liver stops functioning, even though it probably wasn't functioning at 100% to start with. Now it's even lower capacity to function. So you end up with these nutrients stacking up on the liver, and that's how people end up twisting off with the quote-unquote mental disorders. And we're talking about bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, all the quote-unquote crazy illnesses. They're really not. What's happened is this person is poisoned. Their liver has shut down, and they are no longer processing anything, so everything in their system becomes a poison. And that's what we need to keep in mind with families with MTHFR, why they look so crazy and why there's so much trauma and drama within the family, why people twist off and act nuts. Well, because they're poisoned. And if somebody walked up and, you know, shot them full of poison and you watched it and then you saw them twist off, it would be pretty hard to be angry at them. But if you don't know that that's what happened to them, and all of a sudden they act crazy and they get the whole household in an uproar, and this thing goes on for days, and everybody's exhausted, and there's been drama and upset and all kinds of madness, and then everything, the person finally gets their liver working a little bit, they get a little bit of consciousness, they come out of it, but the problem is they never knew they were in it because they were poisoned. So now they walk back in like nothing ever happened, and everybody else is nuts. They're exhausted. They've been, days dealing with your craziness, and you come in acting like nothing ever happened, and you can't understand why they're mad, and they can't understand how you can act like nothing ever happened. And so you can see how this would cause major problems in a family. When you have a family member that's kept the whole household in a wreck for days, and then they walk in like nothing ever happened, and then they can't understand why everybody's acting snarky to them. So this is how families with MTHFR remain divided, and they fight, and they have upset, and what we need is more understanding. We need to understand that when our loved one goes off and acts crazy, we need to realize that that person is poisoned, and we need to handle them as such. We have a medical emergency happening at that point where we need to get this person under control and cleaned out, if at all possible. And sometimes it's not possible, but if it is possible, to try and get some kind of something in their hand that's going to help them dump, like, for example, the Calm Plus Calcium, magnesium, calcium drink. If you can get some calcium and magnesium in them, especially high doses at that point in time, that will help clean out the body and clean out the liver. And if you could give them enough magnesium to run them into diarrhea, that would be even better. Because what happens when that happens is the magnesium runs through the body, and it collects up a lot of toxins and chemicals, and then it floods the colon. And then when it does, it exits. So you're cleaning out those toxins that are overloading the liver and giving that person a chance to come back to consciousness, because they truly are blacked out. And that's why they walk back in 4 days later acting like nothing ever happened. And why they can't understand why you would possibly be upset with them. So, excuse me. So, having that understanding may be a big help in helping the families to get along. And remember that it's even food, especially the methyl groups, that can cause somebody to go into a blackout situation. Now, of course, it can be drugs, it can be alcohol, it can be their medications, even thyroid meds or things like that can send them over. But remember, even food can do it, and especially the methyl groups. And that's why it's important really to get your 23andMe report and then send that off to Strategene. I've talked about this in some previous videos, but this is why it's really, really important, because some people can break down their methyl groups and others can't. For example, I can't break down methionine. I can't even break down SAMe, and I even have trouble with selenium. However, my sister can take methionine. She does great on it. It gives her excellent benefit. So that's why it's important to get that strategene methylation pathway planner, because with it we can tell what are you breaking down and what are you not, and then we know very specifically what to keep you away from and what is safe for you to take. For example, I don't do well with any of these, but I do need methyl, so I still have to take them sometimes. I just limit them greatly, and I'm very careful about how I do them. Otherwise, I get sick. I am not a person who can eat salads every day, and I've tried it, and I got sick every time. There's going to be some people listening to me who get sick if they don't eat meat. I'm also one of those. People with MTHFR, there are some amino acids that are in cooked meats, which we need. And since I have a lot of trouble with the methyl groups, the cooked meats do help my body. I mean, if I don't eat meat, after a while I get weak, I get sick, I just can't function. And then I have some really high quality piece of steak or some kind of beef of some sort, and I just feel my body coming back alive again. It's like, oh, things are starting to fire again. And so I know there'll be some people who listen to me who go, see, yeah, I knew I had to have meat. I feel better when I eat it. Yes, there are many people with MTHFR who feel better when they eat meat. So, I don't have it every day. I don't have it 3 times a day, but I do keep it in the diet. I need it at least once, twice a week to stay on an even keel. But the methyl groups, I have to be very careful with. And sometimes I even have to lay off of my selenium. I can't take much SAM-E or methionine. I can take them for a little while, then they begin to stack up. I have to lay off, then I feel better, and then we start over again. So that's how this thing works. And if you're a person who likes to stay on a schedule, I've had people say, well, can't I just lower the dose, and still take it every day, but on a lower dose? It just doesn't work. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. I've tried it. I've tried everything. And that's also what Dr. Lynch, the researcher, the genetic researcher who studied MTHFR in specific, he also has MTHFR, and he concurs. He says the same thing, that no matter what, you're going to have to pulse it. So unfortunately, this is not a thing where we can be regimented about anything. You're going to have to pulse, and you can't do it by a schedule. It's according to how your liver and kidneys and adrenals are doing and how your other endocrine systems are doing. So that's what we need to keep an eye on, is how am I feeling? And so, if you've been doing great and for a couple of days or a week you've been taking, let's say you've been taking your liver, kidney, adrenal, thyroid, and some methyls, and you start to feel bad. Okay, we need to look at cutting out some things. If you have your methyl pathway planner and you know that you're not breaking down certain methyl groups, try to avoid them all the way if you can. For example, if you can't break down glutathione, well, then you'll substitute with methionine, and maybe you can break that down. But still, if you begin to get overburdened in the liver, if you begin to have stuff stack up on your liver and you start to feel bad, then maybe you need to stop your methionine for a minute. Even though you supposedly can break it down, there may be something else in there that you're not breaking down. So some of it's going to be trial and error, and just a lot of education and paying attention to people like myself who've been working with it for decades, and looking at your family members and talking with them. Also, I've mentioned it before, and I'm going to mention it again because I cannot overplay the importance of having a buddy. The buddy system is very important in your recovery, because when things begin to stack up on your liver and you begin to lose consciousness, you can't think. No matter how much you know, after studying this stuff for 30 years and figuring out what was going on, I still, when I get sick, sometimes can't remember what I'm supposed to do. And that's where I call somebody, usually somebody that I trained, and say, hey, I'm feeling like this. And they'll say, well, do this or do that, based on what I have taught them about looking for the signs and symptoms, which is what we're going to get into now. So we're going to talk about the different organs in the body and what to look for in them. Now, a lot of these are going to overlap. So sometimes it's difficult to sort out what's going on. And a lot of times it's not only the education, but the gut feeling of your buddy that can lead you out of a bad situation. So the education is very, very important to have as a good foundation. And then just being able to listen and ask the appropriate questions and go with your gut on whatever comes up when you're being a buddy to somebody. And hopefully your buddy will do the same thing. So get yourself a buddy, whether it's somebody that you train, whether it's calling in to the church here to speak with me personally, or whether it's somebody else that you find online that understands MTHFR. But find yourself a buddy. That's going to be extremely important in your recovery. Okay, now we're going to talk about the different organs now. The first one we're going to look at is going to be the liver. And, that's one of the big ones. That's why we're starting with the liver. It's one of the really big ones in terms of your condition with MTHFR. You're going to be mainly always keeping your mind and your focus on liver, kidneys, adrenals, liver, kidneys, adrenals, liver, kidneys, adrenals. And then all the other endocrine organs and other body or endocrine glands and other organs are going to be periphery to that. So the main thing is going to be the liver, the kidneys, and the adrenals. So let's look at those. With your liver, obviously, anytime you experience bloating, or you're not digesting, you're feeling sluggish, anxiety, depression, somebody twisting off into some kind of episode, manic or psychotic or whatever kind of quote-unquote crazy episode, that's going to be probably a liver problem. Just what we spoke about, that things are stacking up on the liver. That's an indication that we've got too much of something and we need to slack off for a minute. So your kidneys, you're going to be looking at the same thing. Oh, in both of them, liver and kidneys, you could experience nausea, when you eat. That could be liver or kidneys as well. So with the kidney, of course, you're going to be looking at nausea. You're going to be looking at dry skin. Obviously, any kind of urine problems, urine flow problems, especially if you're not urinating enough, or if your urine is dark or has an odor, then we're looking at a kidney issue, possibly. When you're not able to empty the bladder completely upon going, or there's any kind of pain on urination, low back pain. I think I mentioned dry skin. Okay, these are all kidney things. And anytime that you work on the liver, remember that when you clean out the liver, all of those toxins are going to fall right down into the kidneys. So when you clean the liver, you're going to have to work on the kidneys and the urinary bladder as well. And that's going to be your my biggest go-to is cranberry. So keep lots of cranberry pills on hand, and be sure and feed the kidneys juniper or uva ursi. That's what I was trying to do, combine those two. But juniper or uva ursi, cranberry, sometimes lemon helps the kidneys and the liver. So that's a good one. Some lemon water. Although you want to watch out for, your teeth anytime you're doing too much citrus. A lot of MTHFR people, when they're not digesting, they're also not doing well with citruses. So you kind of have to watch out for that one a little bit. I kind of stick to cranberries, my go-to. I do have other kidney support herbs and formulas here that I use intermittently. But the main go-to, on a daily, is going to be the cranberry. So let's always look for liver, kidneys, and adrenals. And then let's talk about our adrenals right now. So some things you can look for to see if you're dealing with an adrenal problem. That's going to be capillation under the eyes. So the red underneath the eyes, that's where your little bitty capillaries have broken under there. And when that happens and you have that redness under the eyes, that capillation, that's going to tell you that you're looking at an adrenal issue. And, you're going to handle the adrenals with rest, keeping stress away, relaxing, activities, hobbies, things like that. Pick up painting again, or writing, or drawing, or bird watching, or pottery, or walking in nature, or sitting outside. Whatever you can do that is your relaxing thing. Sit and watch the water float down the river. Whatever does it for you to bring you relaxation, you want to do lots of that. And you want to feed your adrenals as well. So raw adrenal is going to be very good. And, there are some adrenal formulas out there. Unfortunately, a lot of them have things in them that people with MTHFR can't have. So always check your labels on everything that goes into your body. So on more on adrenals, upper back fat is a very good indicator of adrenals not functioning properly. So, ladies and even men who have a lot of upper back fat, you're looking at an adrenal body type. That person has weak adrenals. Double chins is another one. Square hips is a huge one. And you can literally, as you start to get your adrenals in line, you can literally watch these things just shrink and fade away. So if you have upper back fat, double chin, or square hips, you can watch them and feel them with your hands on a daily basis almost and see them change. When your adrenals are going to be doing good, those things are going to start to shrink. When your adrenals start to stress again, they'll start to redevelop. So a lot of times, you know, when I speak with my buddy, for example, which is my sister, you know, and it's, if she'll be feeling out of sorts or I'll be feeling out of sorts, the other one will ask, you know, how do your hips feel? You know, how does your, how are your ankles today? How are you walking? Because that's another one is, walking on the outside of the feet, or weak ankles. If, you know, you have trouble running because you always twist an ankle, or you've always had very weak ankles, or look for the wear pattern on shoes. And if those shoes are wearing on the outside, that person's walking on the outsides of their feet, you're looking square at an adrenal issue. Also, tiredness and anxiety will be adrenal issues. So just going back over that really quickly, we've got capillation under the eyes. We've got the upper back fat. We've got double chin. We've got the square hips. We've got weak ankles. We've got tiredness. And we have anxiety, are all adrenal issues. You know you're looking at adrenals when you have any of those. And then, let's see, thyroid. Now, thyroid is an extremely difficult one to deal with because, well, you know, some of the other ones as well. But this one is kind of one of the worst at being the same symptoms whether it's high or low. It's terrible because you know, the only way you have to know whether it's high or low is based on what you've taken, how the liver's been doing, and your best intuition based on your knowledge base. So whether thyroid is too high or too low, you could experience almost any of these. Hot flashes, and even cold sweats, like breaking out in a cold sweat all of the sudden. But definitely hot flashes, sensitivity to cold, all kinds of temperature issues. So when you have temperature issues, I think of thyroid and maybe hypothalamus, and then maybe estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. But when you're dealing with thyroid, you're going to be looking at hot flashes, bloating, which again makes it difficult because that overlaps again with your liver and some of the other ones. Inability to digest, of course, overlaps as well. Anxiety and depression. And see how I'm saying so many of these overlap with other things. But if you can sort them out, put them on a list as I'm giving them to you, over a little bit of time and experience, you'll begin to be able to tell whether this is bloat from thyroid or whether, you know, my liver's not working or overloaded. So also sleep disturbances, sleeping too much or too little. Either one could be thyroid too high or too low. Being tired, sluggish, foggy brain. Also the bladder not filling and emptying. Not only is it a kidney issue, but it could be a thyroid issue. You may not have enough thyroid, or you may have too much. No or few bowel movements. Could be too high or too low. It seems like the mid-range, the perfect balance with the thyroid is where everything works, but you go too high or too low, You could have any of these. So watch out for bowel movements. You want to keep healthy urination, which means strong and long on urination, and it should be a very light color with no odor. Also on your bowel movements, you want frequent, easy, it happens really easy, feels really easy happening, and you should pass a lot of waste every day. So if either of those, the bladder or the colon, if you have a change in either of those, you could be looking at thyroid too high, too low. Loss of appetite and nausea is not only liver and kidneys, but also thyroid. So again, just running through the list very quickly on thyroid, you've got hot flashes and body temperature, bloat, inability to digest, anxiety, depression, sleep disturbances, too much or too little, being tired, sluggish, foggy brain, bladder not filling or emptying, no or few bowel movements, loss of appetite, and nausea. Now, just one thing, I want to bounce back real quick. I just thought about on sleep disturbances. We said too much or too little. Sometimes if the brain keeps running and you can't go to sleep, it could be kidneys, liver, adrenal type stuff, or one of the bigger ones is hypothalamus, but it could also be thyroid. Like if you can't shut off your brain at night, it's probably going to be hypothalamus or liver, kidney, adrenal. But it also, if it ends up not being liver, kidney, adrenal or hypothalamus, it could be thyroid. So if you can't shut off the brain at night, the first thing I would try is the hypothalamus and make sure that the kidney, liver, and adrenal is all working good. And then throw in some hypothalamus for a couple of nights and see if that feels better. It should feel better right away. Like I'm talking first night, second night, should feel better. But again, hypothalamus is not something you can take over a long term. Nothing is for you. I mean, you have to pulse it. So you may, if you can't shut the brain down at night, you might need a little hypothalamus, a little adrenal, liver, kidney issues, or it could be the thyroid. So that does lead us to hypothalamus, which your hypothalamus is going to have to do with your circadian rhythms, which is your sleep patterns. Okay, your circadian rhythms is what wakes you up in the morning and puts you to sleep at night. And the amount of light that comes into the body through the eyes makes a difference in that. So it is important at night to lower the lights to help you sleep. And going without TV at night is great for helping sleep if you can do that. But circadian rhythms, so any kind of, if you're not wanting to sleep at night, you want to sleep, stay up all night and sleep all day, then you may be low on hypothalamus. Also, body temp issues, hot flashes, being too cold, can also be hypothalamus. And remember, it was on thyroid as well, and can even be attributed to kidney and liver. So body temp can be affected by all of them, is mostly affected, I would say, primarily by, I'm debating between thyroid and estrogen. I think it's going to be mostly affected by your hypothalamus first, primarily, and then probably your thyroid and your estrogen, testosterone levels. So look for that when you're having body temp issues or sleep issues. Now, another thing, another endocrine gland is the pituitary. And, you know, I have found I and even my family do much, much better when we incorporate other glandulars. You can't, you know, if you have a thyroid issue, which you probably do if you have MTHFR, you can't just do thyroid and be done with it, and that's okay, because it's going to be the entire endocrine system that's implicated in this process. So doing the other glandulars, mixing those in and pulsing those in and out is going to help you tremendously. So you should have some hypothalamus on hand. You should have some pituitary on hand. You should have some adrenal, and you should have some thyroid all on hand, and use them as necessary. But pituitary, you're going to be looking at overall imbalances. So, like, when I can't seem to get myself straightened out between, you know, thyroid, hypothalamus, the other glandulars, and the nutrients, if I just, like, can't get it worked out, something's it's just not syncing up, then what I'll do is I'll stop the other glandulars, like the thyroid, hypothalamus, stuff like that. I'll stop taking that for a minute and take some pituitary, and it'll tend to help balance it back out. But again, I can't stay on it. I mean, I would love to experience that every day and just take my pituitary every day and be fine. But again, it doesn't work like that. So just have it on hand and use it, you know, when you feel like you're getting out of balance and you can't quite get a grip on it. You don't know what's up. You've tried kind of everything. Then go ahead and have your pituitary. Also, anxiety, depression can be pituitary related. Just not balancing out other glandulars or systems in the body, brain fog, lethargy, that kind of thing. So, you know, one glandular keeps getting out of control or something like that. That's when I just, let me try some pituitary and see what happens. And it tends to help to balance things out, along with detoxing. Of course, detoxing is something you're going to be doing every day, all the time. But you can keep these things in mind as well, so they can help you determine when to start and stop different things. Now, the last one I want to talk about is the parathyroid. Now, a lot of people who have MTHFR can go through periods where they dump all of their minerals. And you know, you're taking your magnesium every single day, and all of a sudden you have symptoms of low magnesium and you can't figure it out, and you've taken it and you even doubled your dose and you're still having muscle cramps and this and that. There's two things I do in that situation to remedy it. One is to increase how much calcium, magnesium I'm taking. And, you know, sometimes when we dump and we're just not having any, and it's, you know, it's just not enough, I could take 5 to 6 doses a day to get caught up. And I know others that have experienced the same thing. So just because you take your calcium, magnesium every day doesn't mean you have enough calcium and magnesium, because your parathyroid is what controls a lot of your mineral balance. Now, a lot of medical journals and whatever will say it only controls your magnesium. I'm calling hogwash on that one. It controls your calcium, magnesium, potassium. I think it controls a lot more than they realize. And what can happen is the parathyroid releases parathyroid hormone. And that parathyroid hormone is what pulls off and rids the body of excess magnesium and calcium and potassium. So if you get a tumor on the parathyroid, which is extremely common with people with MTHFR, if you do develop a tumor on that parathyroid, then what's going to happen is it's going to keep releasing parathyroid into the system, which means what? You're going to keep dumping your calcium and magnesium. And so people with MTHFR, a lot of them have these tumors, and a lot of them need a lot more calcium, magnesium than the normal person does. And then they'll also experience times where the parathyroid starts pumping out and you just dump everything. So you could have gone to the doctor yesterday and he said you have, he tested you, and yesterday you got your results back and they said, oh, you have plenty of magnesium and calcium. That doesn't mean that's true today. That was true 3 or 4 days ago, but today you may have dumped everything. So keep that in mind. You can't necessarily go by blood tests. You have to go by what your body is telling you. And if you have this foundation of knowledge and you have a buddy, and especially if you have your methyl pathway planner from Strategene, then you can figure out what's going on and get back on track. So don't listen to your blood tests. I mean, I'm not saying don't listen, okay? I don't mean it that way. I mean, you can't depend on that. You have to depend on what your body is doing and telling you, because it can change day to day and even hour by hour. So that's what you're going to pay attention to. You're going to pay attention to this foundation of knowledge that we're giving you here. You pay attention to your pathway planner if you can get one. And you pay attention to what your body is telling you. And using that, you should be able to straighten out. Okay, we are at almost an hour, and I was hoping I could get through this really quickly. I know I started out kind of sluggish because I really hadn't spoken much today. I mean, I've been up and around, but I just hadn't used my voice at all. So I'm sorry that it came out a little bit sluggish in the beginning, but I'm glad we got through all of this information. I hope it helps you. I hope you took notes, and I hope you'll call us. If you need help, you can message us. You can make comments, and we will respond to those. So I hope this helps you to be able to sort out what's going on in your body and help you be able to figure out which supplements you need and which ones you need to slack off of. And hopefully you'll see better and better results as time goes by and you get better and better at it. I just know that you can be healthy. It's God's promise that we can. And it all starts with knowledge, which is exactly why we do these, because the Bible tells us to spread the word and heal the sick. So I'm doing my very best to do that. I hope it helped you. If you do find our videos helpful, please let me know. Also, let me know anything that you would like for me to discuss or go into further detail about, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, either privately or on a video. Just reach out, and we're here to help. Okay? So I hope that helps you. Don't forget to, do all the necessaries, like, subscribe, and share. We thank you so very much, and feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're here for you. Have a good day, and thank you.